like in 2020. But remember, this is just one of the possible scenarios. The world...
Alright, I'm not going to do any more slides because Partho said I don't have much time, but let's talk about this. We saw about a scenario where a consumer, her health records are online and she can talk to the doctor about her health situation on a daily basis virtually, which is something we would like to be in a place. We would not like to go make an appointment with the doctor and go see the doctor after 15 days. We would like our medical records to be available to the doctor online, and the doctor can monitor our health regularly. If you see this, this person has got a fridge which is connected to the manufacturers. If it runs out of supplies, the manufacturer can get it refilled automatically. Somebody could ship the groceries, etc. to home. We looked at a scene where the person is watching, is organizing a birthday party, but the manufacturers are pushing certain products at the person. So if you look at the benefits of digital economy, we may not get there in 5 years, we may get there in 20 years, but there are certain things here which we would like. But there are certain things here which, if we don't watch it, and I think in this the governments will play a significant role. If we don't organize that, we would end up not enjoying the benefits, but being bombarded continuously by advertisements, by people having access to our personal data and using it for commercial considerations. And if I was to summarize everything that my previous speakers spoke about, in each of those cases, the companies will put in policies, will buy the right information security services, solutions, hardware, software, and implement it. But in case of a consumer, I think as the government implements smart cities and digitalizes the services being provided to us, we would have to look at them for creating policies for us to be covered. I'm going to skip all of my slides and just talk about one. I think we would need to be prepared for people not to misuse our information and play with it. We would have to put in protection measures, we would have to put in detection measures, and we would have to finally integrate everything together. If an electricity utility is going to implement smart metering in our organization, we would like to share in the benefit, and I'm sure most of the utilities across the world are going to work towards that. And similarly, we would expect similar services from all the people who are going to digitalize services that we are going to consume as consumers.
Partisan are also against the nation. We have identified that professional group of people are now coming up, and this is coming up as an hackers community. He is looking at it on a daily basis, and he has also talked about cyber stalking. He has also confirmed that there are skilled people available to handle this. However, there are very less complaints which is coming to us. Then again we move to Siddharth, that he has actually talked about SMAC, social, mobile, analytics and cloud. So with SMAC, what he has told us that with SMAC there is another emerging factor which is coming up as SMACs. So social, mobile, analytics, clouds, along with that security is coming up. So security data is, and data scary of data of some data stealing examples we have seen from him. He has also talked about some APT 30, which is about 2005 onwards, which is Southeast Asia against, even from India perspective, there are a lot of people are gathering data about government agencies of India. We have also identified that a new word which is a threat value chain. It's a fantastic word, a threat value chain we have identified as a new word. And he has also told about some India pillars, which is about 9 pillars which we need to secure for us. He talked about as a government initiative which is like SART. He has talked about predictive policing. He has talked about awareness policies. He has talked about that forensics, which is an important area for us. Then he moved on from Siddharth to Punit. Punit talked about that this is a government initiative. We are about to talk about some IoT regarding IoT initiatives of the government. So IoT is an important element. So clients were unaware about a lot of things. He told that also. He had shared some fantastic example of how manufacturing setup, sensor-related security issues. So he has told us that while designing collaboration in connected economy, we must have information security in back of our mind. He has talked about physical and logical security as an important element to design and integrate in a manufacturing setup. Mr. Malik came in, he explained us and gave us some excellent statistics of future India. He has talked about some 12 technologies which we must choose to change India. Some very great example he has shared with us from international cyber terrorism. He told us that that only 338 only reported in SAT, which is a very pathetic number, because it resonates with Mr. Ghosh that we are getting very less number of complaints. So the investment will not come until we talk about that we are facing problem. He has also told that some market opportunity of 140 billion market opportunity does exist in the market, which is only on cyber security, which will not be, that if you talk about some Nifty top 10 and I don't know what will be the size of those companies, we must be around that only as a, total revenue of these companies. So he told us that the role of regulatory body we need to identify. He has told also rule of business, role of industry and academia and all. There are various factors which are emerging as a very important factor for us to consider. Then he got into Harish. Harish has, Harish has started with some consumer view perspective. He has talked about responsibility of government, he has responsibility of service provider. He has given us a fantastic example of, that one E-enabled automated day, so much of information and its benefit. He has talked about the relevance of information security requirement, which is inevitable. See, they're all information pertaining to health and all. So how do you prepare against that? He has also given an example on that. So that's all which was there from our eminent panelists who has cleared this. I wanted to summarize this from overall perspective. With that, I've got an opportunity only for one question if you have, otherwise we'll skip. Yeah, please, only one question, yes. Yeah. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have an observation, and after that the question comes. Income Tax India e-filing website, one of the most important websites that we have in India, and one of the most important numbers, our PAN number, is easily available if you just know your name and date of birth of the entity of the person concerned. So I can go to Facebook, I can take the name of the person and have the date of birth, and I can check out the PAN details. The PAN number would be available. If such awareness is not available with the government, how are they ensuring us that the Digital India PAN initiative would be able to raise enough awareness among the corporates and the society as a whole?
Sure. I've seen Harish has picked up the mic and all. He wants to answer.
I just have a comment. Has anybody in this room tried to pay advance tax or TDS on the internet? If you have, you would realize that the website's security certificate has expired. I've been paying advance tax on the website for at least 18 months now. And you press the button, it says the security certificate has expired. You are recommended not to proceed. And the first time it happened to me, I realized I had to pay advance tax. That was the last day. And I went ahead in spite of the security certificate lapsing. So when we talk about security, these basic things are still missing. You imagine you're paying a lot of money on the internet, and that's the only option available to you, and that site is not secure.
I think we could not answer your question. We only talked about another problem. So this is sorry sir, I had organizers are on board and all, so we do not have any other opportunity to take any other question. We'll take it offline. We'll be available. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We have a pleasant task to perform. May I request Mr. Sengupta to hand over the mementos, please, to Mr. Shivaji Ghosh, Principal Secretary, Department of Correctional Administration, Mr. Harish Agarwal, Partner, Ernst & Young, Mr. Siddharth Vishwanath, Partner PwC. Mr. Puneet Bhatia. And to Major General Mr. P.K. Malik. May I now request Mr. Shaunjoy Sen, a co-chairperson of IT Committee, to please hand over the memento to Mr. Sengupta. Thank you, sir.
Session on IoT, we have Mr. S. Radhakrishnan, President of TAI Kolkata and past President of Bengal Chamber, to chair the session. The speakers, we have Mr. Saurabh Mukherjee, Vice President, Data Management, Accenture Digital, Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, Senior VP and Head, Engineering and R&D Services, Happiest Minds Technologies, Mr. C.N. Raghupati, Vice President and Head, India Business Unit, Infosys, Mr. Shubroto Dash, Country Lead, Internet of Things, SAP, Mr. Rite...
We started our journey in India with just one circle in 1995. Today, not only do we cover the whole country, but are also one of the most admired brands in India. We are also recognized as the most trusted service brand in telecom on the back of our products.
Mr. Selva Kumar Rajasekharan, General Manager, New Product Development and Partnerships, Vodafone. I would introduce Mr. Radhakrishnan to you. He is former Managing Director of Descon Limited and DPSC Limited. He is now on the board of Descon, West Bengal Power Development Corporation, JSW, Steel Limited, and advisory board member of Army Institute of Management. A company secretary by education, has elevated to lead some of the best companies and organizations in Bengal. Mr. Radhakrishnan is an institute unto himself, supporting, building, fledging organizations and building new ones. Over to Mr. Radhakrishnan.
Good afternoon, friends. Any session immediately after lunch will be a little drowsy. Anything at the end of the thing, people will be busy looking at their watches to go, including the speakers. They may have to catch the flight. So instead of making any introduction on the subject, as one of the speakers has to take a flight, I would request Mr. C.N. Raghupati, Vice President and Head, India Business Unit, Infosys, to come and speak. Mr. Raghupati has 30 years experience, responsible for strategy formulation, sales, delivery, innovation, and total P&L management. Infosys has signed and delivered many prestigious projects under Mr. Raghu's guidance. Mr. Raghupati, please.
In fact, I'm sorry to break the queue, but it is because of Internet of Things that I have to do it. I'll explain to you in a minute. I don't know how many of you have read Dr. Ramcharan's latest book called Attacker's Advantage. In Attacker's Advantage, Professor Ramcharan states that organizations with an algorithm are the ones that are going to be winning into the future. I'll take a few examples from his book. And that is what defines the Internet of Things. Simple example, I am booked by a flight at 6 o'clock today. Somehow the airline found out that I was desperately in need of a 7 o'clock flight, and the price quoted was 60,000 rupees. Okay, so much for internets and algorithms and so on and so forth. With the good old world when Indian Airlines you could just walk in and go to the next flight, is all gone. So coming to the Internet of Things, I'll briefly talk about 2-3 trends that are, and before I go there, we have tried to keep it light, but then let me introduce Infosys in India, because obviously everybody has heard of Infosys. Not a day passes without Economic Times taking some sort of pot shot at us. And we are doing some of the most prestigious projects in India. We have possibly the largest mobile payment platform, Airtel Money. We do about 4,000 crores worth of business on Airtel Money. which is, I believe, and arguably so because my competitor for the platform is next door exhibiting. We do about 4,000 crores every year. We are doing the largest ever bank rollout in the country for India Post. We are going to create, I believe, what would be the biggest bank with 155,000 branches spread across all the 22 states, which makes it the most densely populated bank. A part of the program is also creating mobility for the good old postman to come and give the money order to the old lady's house down the street. We are working with one of the biggest aspirational telecom providers, no guesses for what they are doing, for who it is, but we have developed a CDN package which will rival that of an established package, and we are doing a whole lot of interesting things there. So I would sort of divide it into 2-3 things. First is what is happening in the technology front, what is happening in the societal front, and then I'll talk about my favorite subject of startups. In the technology front, I will skip all the ones about mobility, etc. But the biggest 2-3 technologies that people talked about, somehow I didn't hear the word semantic web. What people talked about, equipment and machinery, is the semantic web which will go out into the World Wide Web and detect what is available. For example, if you are talking about my name Raghu Kavle and the income tax department is doing a search, they can even send a semantic web out to see where exactly it figures out and then put it into an analytic mechanism. What we are doing with Stanford University is quite interesting because we are doing a whole lot of machine learning stuff. Machine learning with all its algorithms is going to be the next biggest thing. In fact, let me take, I don't think I would be demeaning myself by taking an example from respected Professor Ramcharan's book, where he talks about GE having built a business. They figured out that they maintain most of the turbines in the world anyway. So you get all sorts of data, you created algorithms, and predictive maintenance, they created algorithms for predictive maintenance, and that is $1 billion business for them today. And so when you're talking about technology trends, those are the trends in the software. But I should have taken a step back. And if you take the basics of Internet of Things, you have the sensors or the head ends. The sensors or the head ends are very sensitive. The sensors or the head ends take technology and then give it out via communication mechanism to a software. Since I teach a subject called smart grids at 3 or 4 universities, what I do know, because we have meters, we have modems, and I did a smart grid project for the government of Karnataka. The biggest problem is not your software, because software is ubiquitous. You can have all the companies in my good old adopted country of the United States of America come and say that, you know, this is a software which has worked in the US. After all, you have to parameterize it differently. It's done. Communication, yes, you had communication giants speak today. There's not much of, yes, the Bhishma Pitama of communication is also here. So, you know, you could say communication, we are pretty okay established. 4G may change, 3G plus LTE may change the way you look at things. But the biggest white space is in the sensor area. Can we develop sensors for Indian conditions? I have had conversations, everybody obviously lines up because the smart city thing is what we are making a lot of investments on. So I had some of the world's biggest names line up because they are our customers in the USA, and they come and they say, Raghu, we want to collaborate with you because you are doing the smart utilities, smart grids and so on. I say, can you invest money to develop sensors? And that's where the problem lies. Let me give you an example of sensors. We developed these modems for Karnataka, 56,000 of them, to capture the meter reading from the distribution transformers. Now those modems had a beautiful red light which kept flickering. The monkeys in a place called Bellary took a liking for that. And they started, you know, pulling them off and biting them to see whether there's some meat in it and it was a fruit or whatever it is. Now the Finland guy who actually developed it for us, he really didn't anticipate a monkey to take a liking to a modem. Okay.
Now I can give you n number of examples of such usage of sensors, and that is where today we are paying the price for not having invested in hardware. We don't have our own hardware manufacturing capability. Nobody is going to do it for us because our needs are different. Department of Post had to tender out 4 times for handheld devices. Software was of course given by me, but I don't produce the handheld devices. And that's where there is the big white space which people have. Now, even if you come to the software, there was a crash in Karnataka, and one of the biggest software companies, they are our partners, good guys. And obviously when the entire electrical system crashed, there was a huge hue and cry. Mr. Murthy was still my chairman. The Chief Minister called him, and I was of course marched to Mr. Murthy's office, and there was a conference call late in the night. So he says, Raghu, how can this software fail? In New Jersey I have 6 million and counting. So though I lived in the US for a long time, I had to do my math. I said, that's 60 lakhs, Peter. I already have 9 million and counting, 90 lakhs. So one state of Uttar Pradesh is worth the whole European Union. So even when we talk software, we are talking something totally different. So Internet of Things is a great thing, but there is a lot of opportunity, and there are challenges, but that is the area of opportunity. And that is where I see a lot of startups coming. So let me sort of come to the place where I think among my panelists I can contribute the most. And why so? Because I sit on many of the incubation boards. I am a member of the board of governors for the Manipal Incubation Board. At Manipal University we are trying to create a Stanford there, where if you have gone to Stanford, where they have this sandhill over there which sort of funds all the companies. Google is out of Stanford, Cisco is out of Stanford. Now we are trying to create a similar environment. The other day it was on Monday afternoon, and we had our board meeting, and there was this young man. He came and he showed me a robo which he has developed, and that robo gets into mines, can analyze gases, can say what is the seam of the coal seam, and he had developed it, and he had won the first prize for 5 lakhs in that competition, and he wanted further 5 lakhs. We were very happy to guarantee. And here's the kicker: he was a second year student. Okay, he is not educated elsewhere, and you know where he comes from? Calcutta, Bhubaneswar. So the fact, I told him, I'm very happy that it's not somebody who went to the Stanfords of the world, but somebody who grew up in Calcutta and Bhubaneswar and his father has businesses here, who comes to Manipal and develops a robo, and that robo works. Okay. So if you look at the ecosystem today, we have one of the best things that we have found is we need to catch them young at the college level. We need to have these incubation centers. I have been on the board for about 2 years now. I can't give you the exact numbers because of privacy, but then I'll give you order of magnitude. 20 investments were approved, about 10 went down the drain, couldn't work, etc. 10 have succeeded, and 4 have succeeded brilliantly. One of them is a 3D printing one called Fractal, which we just spun off and asked him to go to the next Series A funding. But the entire ecosystem that we created was something different. Let me give you an example of the ecosystem. One Sunday these guys called me and said, Raghu sir, you have to come and talk to us, talk to all our friends. I said, okay. I thought they were going to book a hall like this and ask me to talk to them. Then I call him up on Sunday afternoon. I say, where do you want me to come? He says, Hard Rock Cave. And I was ready with my jacket, and my daughter asked me, Dad, you think you're going to go to a Hard Rock Cave in a jacket? Okay. But that's the sort of ecosystem that one needs to create. And like we tell all those guys who take money from us, forget it. If you fail, you fail. Yeah, go. It's okay. We can afford it. Okay. Now, that environment, it is being created in some parts of the country. But then I'd be very happy if it is created throughout the country. Because imagine, 1,000 startups in the country, 500 fail, 300 do average, 200 do well, even 20 become another Infosys, Wipro, TCS, you're talking of a winner. Okay? And there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it, because the 20 projects which I said, I was quite amazed. In fact, there was one young kid who came up to me, who presented at the board, and I saw his degree certificate in the first year, and we obviously have to write out a check. So I asked him, how old are you? He said, sir, he was a bit hesitant, I'll be 18 in 2 months time, sir. Come on, at 17, 18, I never even imagined that I should go before a board to present. But then that's the sort of ecosystem I think we need. And that's where I think it is just not about the place or the culture, but it's an ecosystem of funding, an ecosystem of mentorship, an ecosystem of people sitting with you. I think, Chairman, you're on tie, right? Kanwal Rekhi, you must have. So you have attended Kanwal Rekhi's meetings in the US? It's almost a mela, you know, he just sits there, everybody comes and talks to him. So I think we need more of that. Of course, to need more of that, we from this generation X have to change, where we have to have open doors. We need to be supportive of failure. We need to say, it's not your first job that counts, but just go ahead, take this money. If you fail, it's okay, just go ahead and do it. There's 50% chance he'll succeed, 50% chance that he'll fail, but always hope that he'll succeed. So, in closing, the Internet of Things, and I work with the government quite a lot on that, because obviously there's Digital India and there's a committee to find out what is Digital India and so on. All I could tell you is that there are a lot of white spaces, but those white spaces are not going to come from my company or Wipro's or any company, the big companies, but they are going to come, and it's not going to be outside help, the foreign help that's going to come, but it's going to be our own young people. And I think the sooner we find out how to create this incubation mechanism, how to kick in this incubation mechanism, how to make them entrepreneurs not looking around for jobs, I think the better it is. That's all I'd like to say here. I'm sure others can add much more to it, because I just wanted to add my field of expertise on incubation and startups. Thank you.
Mr. Raghupati has a flight to take, so we would request Mr. Radhakrishnan to hand over the memento to him. Thank you so much, sir.